Welcome, everybody. Great to have you here. I'm in the Sustainability Lounge with this incredible view, and it's my pleasure to invite our special guest. Before we start, I'm Dr. Samantha Horseman, and I'm leading the IMPACT10X UN Sustainability Development Goals event. And part of our event is that we are able to speak with a lot of our experts in the field, along with our mentors and advisors. And today I have Dr. Nathan White, who is one of our founders here at our JCU Founders and Residents portfolio. And why Nathan is here with me today in the Sustainability Lounge is that Nathan has an incredible startup that looks particularly at ESG and also greenwashing. So we're here to learn a little bit more about ESGs and also the problem that we're having right now in the industry called greenwashing. So, Nathan, great to have you here. Help yourself to some green tea in front of you here in the
Thanks.
Sustainability Lounge.
All right.
And I'd like to start our session today with why don't you actually share with us the startup that you're working on here with us in our founders portfolio called Lenaion Labs? Over to you for a little 1 minute pitch.
Very good. So, Lenaion Labs is a startup that focuses on detecting greenwashing in, say, company reports, company representations, even, say, grant applications, things like that, essentially to detect whether or not companies are being straightforward about their environmental record. So the word greenwashing specifically refers to, for those of you who don't know, specifically refers to the practice where a company or an entity tries to make themselves look environmentally conscious, look like they're being active in improving their environmental record, when in reality they're making representations that are not consistent. So a company may sound very green, but in actual fact, their environmental record could actually be quite poor and could actually be getting worse. And so what Lenaion Labs focuses on, our product, is to develop an AI-based system that can detect the use of greenwashing language in any kind of reporting text or application text, that sort of thing.
Excellent. And I know that ESG and greenwashing links directly to what we're looking at across all the sustainable goals. And we had a conversation because I believe when we deep dive into what you're doing, it links to a whole lineup of goals. You mentioned 6, 7, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and also 17.
Indeed.
So can you just give us a little bit of an exploration across those goals and how that links to what you're doing in relation to ESG and greenwashing?
Indeed. So the larger concern, obviously, the E in ESG is environmental. So our concern is about the environment and being environmentally sustainable in our practices. So the issue of greenwashing in particular affects each of those areas you just mentioned. So, for example, sustainable goal number 6, clean water and sanitation. Well, a company could be making it sound like in their reporting that they're making a wonderful difference for, say, water and sanitation resources in the communities that they're working in say, a number of developing companies number of developing countries, for example. When in actual fact that the situation is bad and getting worse. So the representation says one thing, the reality is another, and they may be using language to try to get around admitting that fact. For example, likewise, number 7, affordable and clean energy. Well, companies could be talking on and on about renewable energy, but not all say, for example, you can imagine, so say wood is considered a renewable resource because you can always plant new forests. Well, the problem is if you're using wood power to power anything, a company could try to find a way to come up with say weasel words to try to say, well, we're using renewable energy, when in fact that they're actually not they're actually doing something that is actually quite harmful for the environment, and so on and so forth. So each of the environmental areas, other environmental areas, so 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, all have to do with environmental sustainability. It's the same story there. In regard to 9, so industry, innovation, and infrastructure, well, obviously, this impacts industries the most. This impacts infrastructure projects significantly. The fact that everyone, the temptation is not everyone, but the temptation is there to say you're doing one thing that's very environmentally conscious, environmentally concerned, when in actual fact you need to make it sound that way regardless of what you're doing, regardless of what decision has actually been made. And ultimately, with number 17, so partnership for the goals, is that there are many, many opportunities for, say, the greenwashing monitoring tool that Lenaion Labs is focused upon, for us to be able to partner with companies to improve their reporting, to partner with government to detect when things have gone wrong, for example.
Excellent. And it's great that you actually align directly with 17, because I think that is one of our critical drivers for success of the SDGs, is that we're collaborating and we're creating those partnerships and we're continually developing those, which is really critical. Thank you.
Right.
And I know that your background, you're very well published and world renowned in relation to natural language processing, which is really the technology that sits behind Linnaeum Labs. Can you give us a little bit of an overview on how that works?
Okay, I will try to stay out of the technicals, but essentially, yeah. So essentially, at a basic level, what the product that Lenaion Labs is producing, what it does is it takes the text as input. It compares it based on the data sets that we've developed, where the data sets are actually labeled or earmarked for, say, this is an example of greenwashing versus this is an example of not. The AI system attempts to replicate that with the new data that you give it. So you give it a company report. It goes through and tries to read each of the statements based on, is this an example of greenwashing? Is this irrelevant to environmental concerns? Or is this actually a legitimate claim, for example? So you give the claim to the AI system, and the AI system tries to classify it as being relevant, irrelevant to environmental concerns, greenwashing versus not. So that's at a very basic level how the system works.
Excellent. Thank you for that tech overview. So essentially, you're providing companies with a score, obviously, straight after you've applied the technology, right?
That's right.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, so stepping away from the technology, as you know, we both love our technology, and more to how do you see the participants that are going to be joining our UN SDG Impact 10X, how do you see where they could have the most impact in relation to sustainability now? What would be your advice?
Specifically in the greenwashing space or in general?
I think, let's make it general, since
Yeah.
we've had
Okay.
a chance to deep dive.
For sure. So essentially, the biggest problem today that I see is everybody's talking ESG. Everyone is talking sustainability. But the biggest problem today is, are we as a society, are we as individuals, are we as, say, companies and startups, are we going to do this for real? That's question number one. Question number two is, how are we going to make it happen? And I think that second question is actually most relevant for participants in this space, because plenty of companies want to do this, but there is no cost-effective way to do it right now. And I think that's the big question that needs to be answered. How do we do sustainability that's also cost-effective?
I think that's excellent, because this provides us, we've got 6 weeks to look at that.
Right.
So, and we've got fresh minds that are going to cluster their thoughts and world lens onto that. So, I think that's a really great challenge. Thank you for putting that challenge out there, because I think that that will attract a lot of interest and also attention. So, as we move into looking at the future, so going back into the, rolling up your sleeves and finding that solution that's cost effective and impactful, what do you see in the future in relation to sustainability success? If we were to, like, do a fast track in 10 years, what would you like to see? What do you envision that world and that future to look like?
Right. So the biggest, coming from Lenaion Lab's focus on the issue of greenwashing, one is transparency. You can't do sustainability without transparency. If you're being sustainable, of course you're going to want to let everyone know. If you're not, you're going to avoid that transparency stronger than anything. And one of the big issues that we have these days is that, many companies want to get on the bandwagon of sustainability. But ultimately, the issue is, well, how do we do it? And how do we prove that we've been transparent? And that's one of the big problem questions that's out there right now. And so the number one, I would say, 10 years from now, is that we have a clear roadmap for how we achieve transparency in the sustainability space.
That's excellent, and again, very insightful. And I think I've looked at this a couple of times in the literature, and it's also been raised. So maybe we should be looking at another goal, right? Another sustainable goal called transparency for sustainability. There you go.
Indeed.
Who knows? We could actually, this could be a spin off out of our event, which is wonderful. So, Nathan, I know that we're coming up now to just closing up some of our thoughts. And thank you for those great insights. I think you've really got us thinking around greenwashing and ESGs, but also that transparency, which I think is a great challenge to actually tackle.
Right.
And I know that obviously you are not only in our founders and residents with the Neon Labs, but you're also participating a project, and you're looking for other data scientists and innovators to actually join one of your projects as well.
Mhm.
And I also know that you're showcased in our advisor and mentors platform around natural language processing. So, any of our participants that are joining us on August 30th could actually reach out to Nathan regarding natural language processing and any other mentorship or advisory tactics. So I know you're busy, Nathan. Thank you so much for joining us in the Sustainability Lounge, and look forward to seeing you on August 30 when we launch Impact 10X UN SDG.
Very good. Thanks for having me.